having a stroke. I'm gonna be honest.
Hi everyone, this is Editing Xana here from the future, and I just want to apologize briefly for the quality, both visual and audio, of this vlog. It is so bad, and I did not realize until after I recorded it how echoey the room was and just how bad in general everything was. I don't really know what's up with my phone lately. Yeah, we're just gonna have to deal with that for this January vlog because I don't have the time or energy to refilm it, so I'm sorry, and hopefully it will be better next time.
Hello everyone, my name is Xana and I like to read books. That is why we're all here, I assume. As you can see, today I'm in a different location. This is not my house. Don't worry though, I didn't just break into a stranger's house to film a book video, though that would be kind of funny. You know, we know each other well enough at this point that you can see me in a different location without it causing too much distress. Here we are. Another house, another month. Same bad decisions. Although I have good news and bad news. The good news is for you, the bad news is mostly for me, but a little bit for you. I'll share it because I'm nice. The good news is I didn't read any Brandon Mull this month, and I hope you're proud of me for that. That will not be staying true for the next few months, I'm sure. However, the bad news is, if anyone remembers September's video, I have gone back to making the same bad decisions that I made in September. January was a month. Without ado being in any way furthered, let's get into it. The first things that I read in January, as a continuation of things I was reading in December, I read The Wicked King and The Queen of Nothing by Holly Black, the second and third books of the Folk of the Air trilogy. And I also read, there's like a short story that comes between books 1 and 2 called The Lost Sisters that I did not know about, and I read that one too. So The Folk of the Air is a young adult fae series. It's about these two twin sisters who are mortal, and their stepfather sort of is a fairy. He kills their mother because she used to be his wife and she ran away. So he takes them to grow up in fairy with him. It's about Jude, one of the sisters, who really wants to find her place in fairy's court. So in the first book, there's basically like a coup and all of this stuff going on, trying to usurp the crown of fairy. She ends up putting the prince that she really hates, her enemies to lovers, enemy to love interest, on the throne. And then books 2 and 3 are kind of like the fallout of that, and their trust growing, and obviously the enemies to lovers arc, which is shockingly good, as I am not an enemies to lovers person. And then The Lost Sisters is some of the events of the Cruel Prince from her sister Taryn's point of view, which was so well done. I'm deeply fascinated by Taryn. Actually, I think I'd like more about her. I love horrible women. I have talked about the Cruel Prince and just the Folk of the Air series in general at length before in my December video, but I just really enjoy this series, and I am shocked by how much I enjoy it because I'm not much of a YA person. I'm really picky about my fairy stuff. It's just great. I think about this series so much. Very fun. After that, I read Skeleton Key and Eagle Strike. I want to say that's like books 3 and 4 of the Alex Rider series by Anthony Horowitz. Still don't know if it's Anthony or Anthony. Sorry. Mr. Horowitz. Alex Rider is a young adult series about a 14-year-old who doesn't want to be a spy, but MI6 is basically just blackmailing him into being a spy, because who would think that a 14-year-old boy would work for MI6? In this one, Skeleton Key, he has to work with like the CIA in Cuba to see this Russian guy who has like a nuke or something. Yeah, that's a thing, and he gets deeply traumatized by this, of course. Eagle Strike is like, he's investigating a pop star who tried to assassinate his friend's father. I have to say, these books are so fun because they capture the exact spirit of like a deeply corny, over-the-top spy movie. In Eagle Strike, the bad guy kills a man by dropping like 40,000 nickels on him or something. It's ridiculous, and it's very fun. I'm having fun reading the Alex Rider books. After that, I read Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. If you watched my Best of 2023 video, you may recall that I mentioned Babel by this author. These books could not be more different, and I find that very impressive, that one author could write two things that are such complete opposites in terms of like prose and characters and plot. For those of you who don't know, I feel like this book has been all over the internet, so I feel like a lot of people have probably heard of it, even if they haven't read it. Yellowface is about these two authors who are sort of friends. They like went to college together, and one has grown up to become a very famous author, and the other one is just, she's not doing well. she published her debut and it kind of flopped and everything sucks for her and she's like super jealous of her friend. So when her friend dies in front of her in a freak accident, she steals the manuscript that she was working on and decides to pass it off as her own to get published. She's white and her friend is Asian American and was writing about Asian American experiences. This is not going anywhere good. People much more articulate than me have made some really good videos about why Yellowface didn't necessarily work in some ways. You go into it thinking this is going to be about the publishing industry, and then it's kind of not. It feels more about social media than it does about the publishing industry. And I guess to an extent, that's just how the publishing industry is now. You know, I guess that was to be expected, but I was not going into this book expecting to read like 200 pages of Twitter discourse. And I guess it says a lot about how well that was written that I had to put this book down multiple times because I have some anxiety issues with social media. So I had to like put it down and walk away and go, it's fine, I'm not on Twitter. I think in the author's note, the author said that this book was about social media and like the isolation brought on by social media. And I would have to agree. I think Yellowface is much more about social media than it is about whatever story is going on or about necessarily the publishing industry and how that works. It does have things to say about those, definitely, but it is very much about social media and the consequences of social media and the effect that it has on people. I appreciate that the characters are all kind of terrible. In today's world, I feel like we don't necessarily get that as much in media because everybody needs their favorite characters to be like morally correct and perfect. So you can be, you know, morally correct in your media choice. So it was nice to have a piece of media where everyone kind of sucked. It was well written. I feel like it fell short in some areas, but the other people have said it far better than I could. I won't necessarily say I enjoyed it because again, it did give me a lot of anxiety. If this book had been 50, 100 pages longer, I wouldn't have finished it. But because it wasn't that long, I was like, I'll stick it out and I'll finish the book. But if you have any kind of anxiety revolving around Twitter, online discourse, anything, don't read this book. I'm gonna save you the trouble. Don't do it. But it was a good book. After Yellowface, I read White Horse by Erica T. Worth. This is a book that was put on my radar solely because it has horse in the title. I will be completely clear and honest about that. So there's Carrie, our main character. She is Native American, Chickasaw, and Apache, if I'm remembering correctly, and her cousin. She's going through Carrie's mom's belongings in the attic or something, and she finds this bracelet that has weird vibes, and she gives it to Carrie, and Carrie starts seeing visions of her dead mother and her dead best friend. She goes to an aunt, and the aunt is like, yeah, well, if you can like fix the problem with your mother haunting this bracelet, it can heal people. And she's like, oh, sweet, because her dad has permanent brain damage from a wreck. So she goes on this whole quest to find out what happened to her mom. There's also this whole like other undercurrent arc going on with like Debbie's husband and all of that, and Carrie trying to find out about her past. It's a really interesting premise for a story, and there are parts of it that work, and I appreciated like kind of the horror aspect going on, but it feels very not connected. You'll go off on like this whole arc about Debbie's husband and him not liking Carrie, and there's this whole thing about the family, and then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, there's supposed to be ghost stuff in here too, and it just throws in like a random visitation by the ghost and then keeps going. It wasn't bad. The construction could have used a little bit of work, I think. It just felt like I was reading two separate stories that just kept jumping back and forth and back and forth, and with a little more work they could have connected better. The dynamics were very interesting. It was very much like super messed up family dynamics and relationships, and I liked that. Overall, it kind of fell short for me. I don't really know what I was expecting out of it. After that, I read Bravely by Maggie Stiefvater. It's like a sequel to the movie Brave from what, like 2012? You know, the Disney princess, Merida, that one. So this is set 4 or 5 years in the future, maybe. Merida's like in her 20s or something. This god, like the god of ruin, is going to come and like destroy all of Denbrock and kill them because they haven't changed enough. They've been staying the same, stagnating for years. Basically, the other god that's like the balance for the god of ruin is just like, no, I like them. Merida makes a deal basically to have a year to change her family and change herself and change Denbrock. And if they change without the ruin, then they won't be completely destroyed. So she then goes on a quest to take all of her family members on various trips and voyages and see them change and change herself and make Denbrock better, etc., right? So, here's the thing. I cannot believe that Maggie Stiefvater put Merida in a romantic relationship of sorts, and I didn't hate it. I cannot believe she made the one princess that I was always like, yes, the princess without a love interest, like the first one, the one that I cared the most about because she didn't end up with a guy. I cannot believe that she had Merida fall in love, and I wasn't even mad about it. I actually liked it. What? I've been looking around online and I've seen that the reception of this book was not that great. People were not happy about that aspect of it. It's not like a great book. I think it's one of Maggie Stiefvater's weaker ones because its IP is the problem. You are reading about these characters from Brave, but it doesn't feel like they're the characters from Brave. I regularly kept forgetting that I was supposed to be reading about Merida. It may have just been that I haven't watched Brave in a while, but also it's set a decent amount of years in the future, so they're supposed to have changed between the point of the movie and the point of the book, but it's to the point where you kind of just don't recognize them as the Disney characters. There would be occasional references to that time that Merida turned her mom into a bear, but nothing like concrete enough for me to go, yes, this is Brave. I feel like it was weaker because of that. It would have been stronger if it wasn't about these characters at all. If it had just been like original characters in Scotland or something, it would have worked a lot better. Generally speaking, it was well written. I love her prose. It was really good in a lot of ways because of how solid the writing was, but the characters, not that great. The ending, however, I'm gonna be thinking about the ending literally forever. After that, I returned to my childhood. I harkened back to my days of like 2015 or whatever. I reread the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer, that being Cinder, Scarlet, Cress, Winter, and Fairest, and Stars Above. So these, if you don't know, what are you doing with your life? You should read these, they're pretty good. So it's young adult, it's like sci-fi retellings of fairy tales. Obviously, if you couldn't tell from the titles, that would be Cinderella, Little Red Riding Hood, Rapunzel, I mean, you can't really tell that one from the title, Snow White, The Evil Queen, and Stars Above is a short story collection that's about backstories of all of the characters we meet in the Lunar Chronicles, and also there's like a Little Mermaid one thrown in there. It is really fun. It's set on Earth hundreds of years in the future. There's been like a third or fourth world war or something, and so now Earth is very different. There's a colony on the moon that's been there for a while, and the Lunars have been up there so long that they've like developed some magical power where they can change people's bioelectricity and like glamour them basically like fairies and control them. That's all you really need to know. The Lunars are kind of like fairies. We meet Cinder, a mechanic, the prince of the Eastern Commonwealth, like shows up at her booth and is like, yo, can you fix my android? It's a matter of national security. And then he's like, who am I kidding? It's not national security. It was a matter of national security. So Cinder, who is obviously our Cinderella character, gets sucked into this whole conspiracy surrounding like the rightful queen of Luna. They have to like depose the despotic ruler of Luna, who's like trying to get into a marriage alliance with Kai. There's a plague going on. There's genetic mutant wolf soldiers. There's Rapunzel, all of that. There's so much going on. This book series is so interesting. It's based around the fairy tales, and it is using the fairy tales as a core for all of the individual character stories. So technically, you know where these stories are going to go. You know that Snow White's gonna eat the apple and fall asleep, all that stuff. But it's done in such an interesting way with the world building and the overarching plot that's going on that you almost don't know where it's going to go, even when you do. It's inevitable, and it surprises you still, and it's great. I love this story a lot. I really like the world that she's crafted here. I like the characters. I don't like some of the ships, I'm gonna be honest, because every book has a ship. Like, it's the fairy tales. They all end up with a Prince Charming. And I'm not that big on some of them. I don't like Scarlet and Wolf. Now that I'm like an adult, I find Cress and Thorn to be a little bit weird, despite the fact that I enjoy them both as original characters. I feel like it would have been more fun if they had just been friends. Like, could we not have a fairy tale where they just end up as friends? No? No, okay, it's fine. It's very interesting, and the plot is really solid, I think. After the Lunar Chronicles, I read Al Dente's Inferno by Stephanie Cole. And I know, yeah, it's exactly what you're thinking. This is a murder mystery book that's set in Tuscany, where this main character, Nell, is supposed to be setting up a farm-to-table cooking school for some famous chef. But reading this book was like having a stroke. I'm gonna be honest. Characters would just say things, and I'm like, what are we saying that for? Like, what is that? What? This has nothing to do with the conversation. This has nothing to do with the plot. Am I reading the same book? It was weird. I mean, I didn't pick this book up because I thought it was going to be good. I bought this book in a used bookstore because the title made me laugh so hard I cried. So I'm not really sure what I was expecting. It wasn't anything good. It's supposed to be a murder mystery book. Like, it is literally, it's marketed as a Tuscan cooking school mystery. Apparently this is a series about mysteries. The mystery was not even relevant to this story. There's this whole thing going on with the cooking school and whatever the chef had going on with the movie star and Nell's backstory and a vague romance. There's so much going on. And then the guy shows up, and then he gets his head like beaten in with a brick 100 pages in or something. This book is not even like 300 pages, by the way. It's like halfway through the book or something that he actually dies. And then they're like supposedly trying to solve his mystery, but there's no stakes. It's not well written. Nothing about this book was good. That was Al Dente's Inferno. After that, because I am just having a month of fairy tale retellings, I read Rapunzel's Revenge and Calamity Jack by Shannon Hale. These are graphic novels, and it is like a Wild West retelling of Rapunzel and then Jack and the Beanstalk. She's like a redhead, and she finds out that Mother Gothel is actually a tyrant and starving everybody and keeping them in slave mines, and so she's like mad about it, and so Mother Gothel sticks her in a magic tree for a while until she decides to be a good daughter, and she doesn't decide to be a good daughter, spoiler alert, and her hair grows really fast. She learns how to lasso things with it, and then she meets Jack from Jack and the Beanstalk, but you don't really find out it's Jack and the Beanstalk until like later on in the story. It's pretty cool. I read Rapunzel's Revenge when I was a kid. I reread it now because I found out there was Calamity Jack and I wanted to read it. So it is genuinely fun. I wish it didn't have romance. The Rapunzel and Jack romance just feels, it wasn't necessary. It would have been better if they were just friends. After that, I reread The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. I started reading this in September, actually. Forgive me. But I got busy reading other things and doing school, and so I just kind of left it, and I didn't finish it until I decided to just get the audiobook and finish listening to it, because I made it like halfway through. This is not the first time I have read Lord of the Rings. Let me be completely clear about that. This is more like the 10th or something, maybe more time. For those of you who don't know, Lord of the Rings is about this hobbit named Frodo. He's kind of like a little guy, and he has a magic ring that is actually very evil. He decides to go on a quest to destroy the magic ring, so the Dark Lord, who wants the magic ring, can't have it. I feel like I don't have anything to say about this because I've just been talking about Lord of the Rings my whole life, and I probably have the same general opinion of Lord of the Rings as all Lord of the Rings fans do. I like it. I love Lord of the Rings. I'm glad that I can keep rereading it over and over. It's one of those things that I think it just gets better as you get older, or maybe it just gets more comforting as the world goes to shit more. I had a really great moment back in September. I went on a hike with my mom to a waterfall, and I sat down by the waterfall, and I'm reading Lord of the Rings, and I look over at this lady next to me on the bench, and she's reading Lord of the Rings. She's reading Return of the King. I'm reading Fellowship. She looks over at me, and she's like, "Oh, wait, is that your book?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then she pulls out an exact matching copy and was like, "I thought you had my husband's copy." We had a great conversation after that in the bathroom about Lord of the Rings. So it's full of love. It brings people together. That was nice. After that, I read, because I cannot find a decent image of this cover anywhere, I read the first book of the Unicorns of Balinor series by Mary Stanton. I am reading these because I read the first 3 books when I was a kid, and then I discovered that the library did not have any more of the books. And the library still does not have any more of the books. But I am an adult now, and I have access to multiple library systems, so I have decided I'm finishing this book series. There's this magical realm called Balinor, and there's a bunch of magical unicorns in the Celestial Valley that is somehow connected to Balinor. There's this evil shifter guy who's trying to take over. They send the Princess of Balinor and her bonded unicorn to Earth to try to protect them, but they get in some accident, and so she loses her memory, and the unicorn loses his horn, and they're trying to get back to Balinor and heal and get her memory back so she can, I guess, defeat the shifter guy. I would put this solidly on the readable scale. This is like, I would not recommend this to an adult. Unlike series such as, say, The Unicorn Chronicles, or, The Last Unicorn, or any of those, I would not recommend this to an adult. I think it is very much children's reading level. It's not very enjoyable to me. Now that I'm older, I'm reading it because I want to know what happens, because I spent so long in my life going, what happened after book 3? So now I'm going to know, and I will tell you, and you won't have to read it. How great is that? Then I read Call Down the Hawk by Maggie Stiefvater. This is the first of the Dreamer trilogy, which is a sequel to the Raven Cycle. It's about Ronan from the Raven Cycle and like his dreaming ability. Some dreamer is supposedly going to end the world, and so there's this society that's trying to like hunt them all down and kill them, and it's about Ronan's family and stuff. So, Raven Cycle fans, Maggie Stiefvater fans, I need you to forgive me for what I'm about to say, and I need you to remember it's okay that people have different opinions. My opinion does not affect the fact that you love this series, and it's fine. Whatever, we can agree to disagree. It's okay. I don't like the Raven Cycle. Every day I pretend I remember what happened as I'm reading Call Down the Hawk, and I'm going, yeah, I remember Lindenmere. I know what Lindenmere is. Yeah, what happened to Cape Squire again? What was up with the Welsh King? I've forgotten everything, and that's okay. I can't be bothered to reread this series. I could take it or leave it. I would take it because I like Maggie Stiefvater's writing so much, and I feel like she's actually doing some interesting things with this. I'm interested in Declan. I can't believe I'm saying that. I am interested in Declan. I like whatever Declan has going on. I like some of the newer characters, like Jordan. Love Jordan. Whatever Ronan has going on, I am fascinated by. I'm not invested in the characters to the point where I have to know what happens. I could stop reading this series and be fine. There are two things stopping me. One is I do like Maggie Stiefvater's writing, so I want to keep reading. And I feel like the more I read her writing, the more I like internalize it and the better I become as a writer. At that end, I always finish book series. There was one book in all of 2023 that I did not finish. There was one. I don't not finish things. That's a trilogy, so I'll finish reading it and I'll let you know my thoughts. My thoughts right now are Declan. Writing style. Fantastic. Gray Man, miss him. Adam, I miss you, but also I need you to stay away because you're me, and I can't deal with that. After that, I'm sorry for this, especially if you watched September's video. I read The Knights of Eristree. That's a bad joke. It's not funny if you haven't listened to these audiobooks, or listened to me talk about these audiobooks. I read Sir Quinlan and the Swords of Valor and Sir Rowan and the Cimmerian Conquest. These are books 5 and 6 of the Knights of Eristree series by Chuck Black. This is a young adult Christian fantasy series that is essentially, we have taken the story of Jesus Christ and we have set it in a fantasy setting, so he is now a prince and his followers are knights, and it's bad. I feel bad talking about this series because it's so bad that I shouldn't be telling people about it. I cannot believe in Sir Quinlan and the Swords of Valor, they literally reinvented tribbles, but made them squirrels, and then they literally serve Satan. Is the guy who wrote these okay? I just want to know. And then in book 6, it's like the Revelation story. Theologically speaking, maybe this is just because I grew up in an evangelical setting, so I have like this insight into it. Theologically, these books fascinate me because all Christian YA series that are like this, you know how they're going to end. And it's not like a good, I know how they're going to end. Generally speaking, what you can expect out of a fantasy story is it's good guys versus bad guys, and the good guys usually win. That's kind of how it goes in a lot of stories. But what's so fascinating about Christian YA series is they have to end in really specific ways, especially when they're like the Knights of Eristree and set it up as like a one-to-one. Jesus, the prince, knights, disciples, whatever. It's the literal story of Jesus as told in the Christian Gospels, but in a fantasy setting. It's literally God versus Satan, and so you can't ever have Satan win because that's going against Christian principles. Like, that's not how that works. Like, nobody can defeat God. He's God. He's like all powerful to them. So there's no way that Satan's ever going to defeat anybody. So you always know that Satan's going to lose and the good guys are going to win. And because they're doing such a one-to-one comparison, and because of like the theological beliefs, they're always going to go with the Revelation storyline, because in the Bible, there's the book of Revelation, which is basically prophecies for like how the end of the world is going to come about. If you know anything about Revelation, you know exactly how all of these book series are going to end, because they're going to follow the guidelines set down in Revelation, because the Christian belief is that the Bible is the word of God, and therefore you can't contradict it. You can't just be like, oh, that's not going to happen in my book series. Like, if you are writing about Jesus, you're going to write about the Bible, and you're going to follow the Bible to the very end. So all of these book series go the exact same direction, and it's never good. It's just like, okay, that happened, and now all the bad guys have gone to hell forever for good, and it's not really a very satisfying ending, ever. You wouldn't think there's that many Christian fantasy series that do this, but there is, like every single one. I've read so many of them, and I'll keep reading them so you guys don't have to. But the good news is, that's the end of the Knights of Eristree, and now I'm done forever and I don't have to keep reading those. I'm free from those. Then I finished Harrow the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. Harrow the Ninth is the second book in the Locked Tomb series about lesbian necromancers in space, basically. Following the events of Gideon the Ninth, it's flipping back and forth between the present timeline with Harrow and all of the lictors and the rebellion and such, and then what seems to be some kind of alternate timeline for Canaan House, and you're like, wait, this isn't how it happened. What? Highly recommend. Love this book so much. It is so well constructed. Tamsin Muir is a genius. Perhaps the greatest literary genius of our generation. Will never stop thinking about this book series ever. Then I read my obligatory Ann Patchett book. I read Run. This is a novel about this man who used to be the mayor of Boston and his 2 adoptive sons and his 1 non-adoptive son. They're kind of like a little bit on the outs, him and his sons, because he wants them to go into politics and they don't want to go into politics. They are in the middle of an argument when one of them almost gets hit by a car and gets pushed out of the way of the car by this woman that they don't know. And from there, it just kind of like unravels into this whole wild story that you just don't expect to happen at all. There were bits where I was like, Anne, are you doing what I think you're doing? And she was doing what I thought she was doing, and it was wild. It's not my favorite Ann Patchett book, but it is really good. Like, this has just been a month where I have been reading my favorite authors with Tamsin Muir, Ann Patchett, and Maggie Stiefvater. So like my brain is just full of good words. It was very good. It was excellent. As always, highly recommend Ann Patchett. The last thing that I read, and another thing that I need to apologize for, is Venom and Song by Wayne Thomas Batson and some guy. His name is Christopher Hopper. I don't know who this man is. I read this because Wayne Thomas Batson. So this is the second book of the Barenfeld Prophecies books. This is another young adult Christian fantasy series, and it is just as terrible as Knights of Earthstray. The first book is about how these seventh graders find out that they're like elf lords of this magical other world, and they were brought to Earth as babies to grow up there because the Spider King tried to kill them all. And it just feels like a really big extended prologue. It's not very well constructed. Venom and Song, not that much better. The audiobook, I listened to the audiobook again and it was just as bad. Did not learn my lesson. Don't listen to the audiobook, but also don't read these. They're in this other world and they're training with all the elves and they're trying to go back and like retake their homeland and stuff. Again, it's just as overcrowded. There's too many characters. None of them really have that much development. For some reason, with zero development, they're like, yes, the 12-year-old has fallen in love with the other 12-year-old. And I was like, what? You're 12! Stop that! It's weird. Everything feels like vaguely contrived. It's not really well put together. It's very meandering. At one point, the kids find out that the whole reason the Spider King hates them and there's this whole war going on is because the elves in the past enslaved his people. And they're like, why didn't you tell us this? And the guys are like, well, it was a long time ago, and if we told you, you wouldn't have wanted to come. Like, this whole war is their fault, mind you. And them saying it was a long time ago just does not work because these people lived thousands of years. These were the same people. They were alive. They were the ones who did the enslaving. And then these 12-year-olds go up to the Spider King and they're just like, yeah, get over it. Hello? I can't believe this book. Oh god, and it's so long, and it's so bad. And every time you forget one of the characters is blue, they remind you. She's blue. You know, at least I'm done, right? Like, that's the end. Right? Yeah, I'll see you again in March. So as you can see, I made some interesting reading decisions in January. I make no promises about February, but you know there's gonna be at least one bad Christian YA book on this list because I'm already reading it. We shall see. Hopefully I will start making better reading decisions. I say this, but I am fully aware that I'm going to read the Pirate Christian series next. So buckle up for that one. I feel like I had things I was gonna say in this video, but I'm so tired. I can't think. I've been doing so much homework. Forgive me. I know I like look and sound vaguely sick. I am vaguely sick. I'm very tired. I'm still working on the Dragon Watch vlog, and I hope it'll be done before, you know, like this summer. If you have any book recommendations that are not bad YA Christian novels, or I mean, even if you do, I'll read them. So, bye! If anybody else remembers Rise of the Brave Tangled Frozen Dragons, I was so mad. Every time people were like shipping Merida with Hiccup, I was like, no! Merida's single! Like, this was like my toxic trait when I was 14, okay? The Lunar Chronicles, very fun. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I reread these to keep myself from rereading Fablehaven, and I was going to reread Fablehaven to keep myself from rereading Beyonders. So, I hope you're proud of me. That filled a niche that I needed. Niche? Why have I forgotten how to say words all of a sudden? Adam, love Adam, also hate Adam because he's literally me, but male and Virginian, so I cannot read about him without losing my mind a little, going, oh god, that's me. That's not a good thing. Do with that what you will. There's just something about the beginning of the semester, guys. Whatever semester it may be. The semester starts and I make bad reading decisions.